Thank you all for joining me. In the midst of these really crazy times in our country, I wanted to say a few words about the political situation as I see it. As I think all of you know, our political revolution, our grassroots movement, was never ever about electing one person to become president of the United States, not Bernie Sanders, not anybody else. We are a movement to elect progressives at every level who will fight for a government that represents all of us and not just the 1%. That's what we are about. And last night, I'm happy to tell you that Melat Kiros, a candidate who we supported, many of you contributed to financially, won a huge upset victory in the Denver, Colorado area. She took on a 30-year incumbent member of the House of Representatives, and she won by a 10-point margin. Her opponent had millions and millions of dollars in super PAC funding and greatly outspent her. But Melat did what progressives always do. She ran a strong grassroots campaign with many, many hundreds of volunteers, and she won. When I look at Melat's victory, when I look at the election results in New York City that made Zohran Mamdani the mayor of that city, when I look at recent primary victories in New Jersey, Montana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, California, rural areas, urban areas, when I look at Abdul El Sayed's lead in the polls in Michigan, when I look at Graham Platner running a fantastic grassroots campaign and defeating a sitting Democratic governor in Maine for the Democratic nomination there, when I look at Peggy Flanagan's dynamic and aggressive campaign in Minnesota, when I look at the huge turnouts for our Fight Oligarchy rallies and No King events, millions of people all over the country coming out to these events. When I look at a billionaire's tax qualifying for the ballot in California, which is no easy task. When I look at worker organizing campaigns sprouting up and succeeding across the country. When I look at public support for trade unions at an all-time high, I believe that it may just be possible that this country is on the verge of the political revolution we have fought for such a long time. Now, I do not have a crystal ball to tell you what will happen next, but last night and the last several months have given me hope and optimism, and I hope it does the same for you. It has given me hope that all across this country, people understand that given the dangerous and unprecedented moment in which we are living, we need to rethink, rebuild, and fundamentally reform the Democratic Party. We need a party that is not just in opposition to Trump and his disastrous policies. That is vitally important, and progressives are going to lead the way in opposition to Trump. But that is not enough. We need a party that is prepared to take on the greed and ideology of the oligarchs who now control the economic, media, and political life of our nation. And we need to create an economy and a government that works for all of us and not just the few. We need a Democratic Party that opens its doors to new people, new energy, and new ideas. We need a Democratic Party that is truly a grassroots party, where decisions are made from the bottom on up, not from the top on down. We need a Democratic Party which becomes the political home of the working class of our country and young people, Black and white, Latino and Asian, American and Native American, all Americans. And here is the very good news. The agenda that we are fighting for is the agenda that the American people want. Now, I know that our opponents say, this is a far left agenda, nobody likes it. Well, guess what? The vast majority of the people are with us because they understand that our healthcare system is broken, it's dysfunctional, it is wildly expensive, and that we must pass Medicare for all because healthcare is a human right, not a privilege. At a time when 60% of our people are living paycheck to paycheck, the American people know that we must raise the minimum wage to a living wage so that no worker in America lives in poverty. At a time when corporation after corporations operates illegally by making it impossible for workers to join unions, the American people understand that unions are the means by which workers get protection, and we must make it easier for workers to join unions. And I don't care whether you're a conservative Republican, a socialist, a moderate, or whatever you may be. Everybody knows that our current campaign finance system is corrupt and that it is dominated by billionaires and their super PACs who buy and sell politicians. Everybody knows that we must end Citizens United, get super PACs out of the political process, and that we need to move toward public funding of elections. And at a time when we have more income and wealth inequality than we have ever had in the history of this country, yeah, we must demand that the wealthy and the billionaire class start paying their fair share of taxes. And right now, when you have a president of the United States who wants to increase military spending by $500 billion, if you can believe it, $500 billion more on top of $1 trillion, the American people know that what we have got to do is not only cut the bloated military budget, but stop these endless and horrific wars that we're seeing right now in Iran, in Lebanon, and elsewhere. The American people, from coast to coast, finding it very hard to afford housing. And our young people today are going to get their first home, if they ever get their first home, 12 years later than their parents. So what must we do? We've got to build millions of units of low income and affordable housing. And right now, in the midst of a terrible and dangerous heat wave right here in the United States, which followed the heat wave that took thousands of lives in Europe, we know that climate change is an existential threat to this planet. We've got to take on the fossil fuel industry, and we've got to move to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. And I think every day, more and more people are understanding the dangers that AI and robotics have for our country, and believe, as we do, that we must make AI and robotics work for all of us, not just the billionaire owners of big tech. So I think there is a growing consensus that our agenda is the agenda of the American people, and that's why we are winning elections. So where do we go from here? What do we do? Well, short term, in my view, we must build on our extraordinary successes by doing everything possible to win the August Democratic U.S. Senate primaries in Michigan and Minnesota for Abdul El-Sayed and Peggy Flanagan. So right now, within the next month, there are going to be two really important Senate primaries in Michigan and Minnesota. We've got to do everything we can to support Abdul and Peggy. And on top of that, we have many, many progressive candidates running for Congress, and they're running for down ballot positions, and we've got to be on their side and get their backs as well. And then after the primaries end, our job is to build the strongest grassroots political movement this country has ever seen for a general election. Let me be very, very clear about this. The wealthiest people in this country, the billionaires in America, they have unlimited, underlying the word unlimited amounts of money to spend to elect right-wing Republican candidates. All right? We're talking about billions and billions of dollars. Money doesn't mean anything to them. Their super PACs are going to be flush with cash. And the only way we take on that money is through an unprecedented, strong grassroots movement, which means that we've got to knock on millions of doors from coast to coast, reaching out to working families, reaching out to the young, reaching out to the disaffected. That's what we got to do in the general election. And then in January 2027, after we gain control over the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate, we begin the process of transforming our country and doing all of the things that working families know must be done. So we got a lot on that agenda. Let's get it done, and I look forward to working with all of you. Thank you very much.